Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever truly paused, I mean, really stopped, to consider why we're here? Like, what's our ultimate purpose? Today's deep dive tackles a really profound question uh, from a theological angle. Why is it that humans are called to worship Allah?
Yeah, it's a fundamental question. And
Yeah.
what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how the source material we looked at lays out this cohesive framework, almost intuitive, really. It's not just presenting worship as, ritual. It's framed as a logical, even spiritual consequence of recognizing the divine.
Okay.
And it all centers on this concept of the absolute oneness of Allah. It's like the engine for everything else.
Right. And so we're going to explore this through what, three powerful pillars, it seems. We'll look at the theological necessity, based on divine attributes, then how worship actually fulfills our innate human nature, and finally, the incredible benefits both in this life right now and in the next, which can
Yeah,
be surprising.
exactly. It covers a lot of ground.
So let's dive straight into the absolute core here, Tawhid. The source material calls it the ideological bedrock for, well, all Islamic teachings and practices. But for someone maybe looking for that aha moment, what is Tawhid, like, at its essence? And how is it so tightly linked to worship?
Right. Well, at its very core, Tawhid is the belief in the absolute oneness of Allah. Simple to state, but incredibly profound. It's the foundational belief, so fundamental, actually, that it's inseparable from worship. They're truly like two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
Tawhid is the conviction,
Yeah.
the intellectual and spiritual foundation, acknowledging Allah as the one and only God. Worship, then, ibadah, is its practical manifestation. It's the tangible expression of that core belief in our actions, our intentions.
You can't really have one without the other.
You can't truly practice sincere worship without that fundamental belief in Allah's absolute oneness. It wouldn't make sense. And scholars, for clarity, often classify Tawhid into three dimensions. It helps break it down. And each one directly impacts why we worship.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, there's Tawhid Rububiyyah. Now, this means acknowledging Allah as the sole creator, the owner, the ruler, regulator, sustainer, basically, of the entire universe. The term Rab, often translated as Lord, really captures all those roles together.
Right, I've heard that term.
And the Quran is explicit about this. For instance, Surah Adh-Dhariyat, verse 62, it declares, Allah created everything and he maintains everything. Pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
And another powerful verse, Surah Al-An'am 102, directly links Allah being the creator and sustainer to the command to worship him. It says, such is Allah, your Lord. There is no deity except him, the creator of all things, so worship him.
Ah, okay, so the link is right there in the text.
Exactly. The logical implication is, well, unavoidable, really. If we're totally dependent on Allah for our very existence, for everything, then submission and worship are naturally due only to him. It's presented as the only rational response, once you recognize who holds that ultimate power and provides sustenance.
That makes sense. Dependence leads to devotion. So what's the second dimension?
Second, we have Tawhid Uluhiyyah. And this is essentially the practical follow-through of Tawhid Rububiyyah. It's the act of dedicating all forms of worship, both the outward actions and the inward states, like love and fear, exclusively to Allah.
Okay, so Rububiyyah is knowing he's the boss, Uluhiyyah is acting like it.
That's a simple way to put it, yes.
Yeah.
Ibadah, or worship, is defined broadly here as anything Allah loves and is pleased with. And it's performed with three key inner components: ultimate love, mahabba, sincere hope, raja, and deep reverence or fear towards him.
Love, hope, and fear. Interesting mix.
It is. And the Quran often bases this command to worship directly on Allah being the creator. We see it in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 21. O mankind, worship your Lord who created you. See how it connects his status as the sole Rab from Rububiyyah with the obligation to worship him alone, which is Uluhiyyah?
Yeah, it's reinforcing that link constantly.
Precisely. And this is exactly why shirk, associating partners with Allah, is considered the absolute greatest sin. It's not just like breaking a rule. It's seen as an intellectual contradiction, a spiritual inconsistency, a fundamental betrayal of this core truth that only the Creator deserves worship.
Okay. Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah was the third one.
Finally, there's Tawhid Asma wa Sifat. This means believing in and affirming Allah's most beautiful names, Al-Asma al-Husna, and his perfect attributes, just as they are stated in the Quran and the Sunnah, without distorting them, denying them, asking how they exist in a literal sense, or, importantly, trying to make them resemble creation.
So accepting his qualities as described without trying to overanalyze or compare.
Exactly. Surah Taha, verse 8, proclaims, He is Allah. There is no deity except Him. To Him belong the best names.
Hmm.
And understanding these attributes, this is what really ignites sincere worship. It makes it anything but dry or mechanical.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay, well, knowing Allah as Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, or Al-Wadud, the most loving, that cultivates deep love in our hearts for Him.
Right.
Realizing He is Al-Ghafur, the most forgiving, that fosters immense hope. It encourages us to always turn back, even after mistakes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then comprehending attributes like Al-Qahar, the subduer, or Al-Aziz, the almighty, that instills a necessary awe, a reverence, a healthy fear that helps prevent wrongdoing. It's this balance, love, hope, and awe, that gives worship real substance and depth. It fuels it.
Wow, okay. Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just three separate ideas, is it? It sounds like a deeply interwoven system.
Absolutely. It's not meant to be seen as separate boxes.
So if you accept Allah as the ultimate creator and sustainer,
Those Rububiyyah,
it just logically follows that all worship should be directed only to Him.
which is uluhiyah,
Yeah.
spot on.
And understanding His perfect attributes
Asma wa sifat.
doesn't just make worship meaningful, it actually fuels its very essence. It gives you the love, hope, and fear needed.
Precisely. It transforms it from obligation to, ideally, a heartfelt connection. It's a dynamic, integrated way of seeing God and relating to Him.
That paints a very compelling picture of the theological necessity, the divine right, you could say. But for many people, I think the idea of worship can still feel like an external demand, maybe even a burden sometimes. How does the source material address that sort of internal resistance, or the feeling that it might be a chore rather than, fulfillment? What about us in this equation?
That's a really crucial point. And this is where the deep dive gets quite personal, I suppose. The material explains that this obligation to worship Allah isn't just some external command dropped on us. It's actually presented as the fulfillment of our existential purpose, an answer to a deep inner calling.
An inner calling? How so?
Well, first, there's the concept explicitly stated in the Quran regarding our creation purpose. It's often referred to by the Arabic term liya'budun. In Surah Adh-Dhariyat, verse 56, Allah says quite clearly, "And I did not create jinn and humans except to worship me."
Okay, that's pretty direct, but does that mean Allah needs our worship?
Good question. Scholars like Ibn Kathir and Quraysh Shab clarify this. Allah, being self-sufficient, doesn't need anything from us. Rather, this purpose worship is established for us. It provides clear direction, meaning, and ultimately is presented as a source of happiness and fulfillment for human life. It's like being given the operating manual for your own well-being.
A gift of purpose, then, not a demand for His sake.
That's the perspective, yes. Then there's something really fascinating. The primordial covenant, or mithaq. This refers to a pre-birth agreement, something that's supposedly took place in the realm of souls before we were even born into this world.
Wow, okay. Tell me more.
So picture this. In Surah Al-Araf, verse 172, the Quran describes Allah gathering all the souls of humanity and asking them, "Am I not your Lord?" And all the souls collectively replied, "Yes, we testify."
All souls. So a universal acknowledgement before life even began.
According to the text, yes. And the profound purpose of this universal testimony, it's explained, was to ensure that on the Day of Judgment, nobody could say, "Oh, I didn't know," or "I was just following my ancestors." It establishes an inherent pre-conscious recognition of the divine within every soul.
That's a deep concept, a preloaded recognition.
It is. And that ties directly into the third point here. Fitra. Fitra is described as the innate, natural disposition, a pure inclination that Allah has supposedly ingrained in every human soul, an inclination to recognize and seek the one God.
Like a built-in spiritual compass?
Kind of, yeah. Surah Ar-Rum, verse 30, says, "Direct your face towards the religion, inclining to truth. Adhere to the Fitra of Allah upon which He has created mankind. No change should there be in the creation of Allah."
Okay, so it's part of our original makeup.
Exactly. And this is reinforced by that well-known hadith, the saying of the Prophet Muhammad, "Every child is born upon Fitra."
Then their parents make them Jewish, Christian, or Majusi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that one.
Right. It highlights how external factors, environment, upbringing, society, can cause deviations from this innate, pure state. They can overlay or obscure it. So putting it all together, worship from this perspective isn't some alien or burdensome command imposed from outside. It's presented as a call that's deeply aligned with our actual human nature, our original design.
Or rejecting it.
Rejecting it isn't just seen as defiance. The source material frames it almost as a betrayal of one's own essence. It can lead to inner turmoil, restlessness, precisely because it contradicts the soul's original programming. It's fitra. It's like trying to run sophisticated software on incompatible hardware. It causes glitches.
It sounds like worship isn't just a religious dictate then, but maybe a fundamental answer to that deep human longing for purpose and connection. It's almost like it's wired into our very being, a return to our true original factory settings, if you will.
That's a great analogy, actually, the factory settings. It resonates because the argument is, yes, external influences can deviate us. They can install malware, maybe.
Yeah.
But deep down, that yearning for meaning, for connection, that's the Fitra trying to reassert itself. And when people genuinely engage in worship from that place of inner recognition, not just habit, they often report finding a sense of peace, an alignment that was missing, a return to their true selves, as you said.
A kind of inner coherence.
Exactly. An antidote, perhaps, to the dissonance and anxiety so common today in a world pulling us in countless directions.
Okay, that connects the theological to the personal really well. But let's shift gears slightly. Often we might think of worship, maybe subconsciously, as a chore or, something purely for the spiritual bank account in the next life. But what does this deep dive reveal about the immediate tangible benefits, maybe even surprising benefits right here, right now, in our daily lives?
Yeah, and this is where the practical wisdom really unfolds. The sources emphasize that Allah's command to worship isn't for his benefit. He's self-sufficient, remember. Instead, it's absolutely laden with wisdom and advantages that return entirely to us, to humanity. And these benefits touch on everything: spiritual, psychological, moral, even social dimensions. It's presented as a truly holistic system.
Okay, let's break that down. What about the spiritual and psychological side?
Well, perhaps one of the most sought-after benefits is inner peace, sakina. There's a beautiful verse in Surah Adh-Dhariyat, verse 28. Those who have believed and whose hearts are assured by the remembrance of Allah, unquestionably, by the remembrance of Allah, hearts are assured.
Assurance through remembrance.
Yes. Jikrullah, the remembrance of Allah, which is really central to all forms of worship, not just chanting, is presented as the key to unlocking inner calm, tranquility, even amidst the anxieties and stresses of modern life. Imagine finding stillness in a storm. That's the potential.
That's a powerful promise in today's world.
It really is. Worship is also framed as the highest way to show gratitude, shukri, for Allah's countless blessings. From life itself to health to sustenance, it fosters appreciation. And importantly, it's a primary means of seeking divine help, isti'ana.
How so?
Think about salat, the formal prayer. It's described in tradition as the closest a servant gets to their Lord. A prime opportunity, a direct line, if you will, to seek strength, guidance, help in difficulties.
Like having a dedicated support line when things get tough.
Exactly. And ultimately, the whole spectrum of worship, prayer, fasting, charity, remembrance, it all aims to elevate us to this state of taqwa.
Taqwa. We hear that word a lot. What's a simple way to grasp it?
You could think of it as a profound God consciousness, an awareness of his presence, his constant watch. It's like having an internal moral compass, constantly calibrated. This awareness naturally compels you towards obedience and helps you avoid wrongdoing. It's protective.
Okay, so inner peace, gratitude, divine support, and this state of taqwa. That's quite a package psychologically. What about the moral and social benefits?
They flow directly from this inner state, especially taqwa. Worship acts as a potent moral shield. Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 45, states, "Indeed, prayer prohibits immorality and wrongdoing."
How does prayer do that, practically speaking?
Well, sincere, focused prayer constantly reminds you of Allah, of accountability. This awareness makes it harder to consciously engage in unethical acts. It builds a barrier against temptation. Worship also directly builds character. Think about the specific practices. Daily prayers, salah, instill discipline, time management, consistency. You have to organize your day around them.
True.
Fasting, psalm, cultivates self-control, patience, empathy for the hungry, huge virtues.
Definitely tests your patience.
Right, and the Hajj pilgrimage, it promotes equality, humility, universal brotherhood. Everyone dresses the same, performs the same rituals, regardless of status or background. So collectively, these aren't just rituals. They actively build responsible, honest, resilient individuals.
And the social aspect, you mentioned empathy.
Yes, acts of worship like zakat, the obligatory charity, and also infaq and sadaqah, voluntary spending and charity, along with fasting, directly foster empathy and social concern. When you experience hunger, even temporarily, you can perhaps better understand the suffering of the poor. This understanding ideally leads to greater sensitivity, generosity, and helps bridge social divides. It strengthens the community fabric.
So let me try and summarize this. What does this all mean for us? It sounds like a truly holistic system. It starts with that spiritual connection, seeking that inner peace, the sakina, that then leads to building strong moral character through practice and discipline.
Right, strengthening that taqwa.
And ultimately, it contributes to a more just, more compassionate society through things like charity and empathy. It's a whole transformative process benefiting every aspect of life.
That's a great summary. It's presented as a virtuous cycle, really. Inner change leading to outer positive action.
Okay, while these benefits in this life are incredibly compelling, I mean, peace, character, social good, the source material also clearly points to, well, the highest consequence, the ultimate motivation for sincere worship, something far beyond our earthly existence. What is that ultimate destination?
Indeed. While worldly benefits are real and intended, the ultimate goal, the highest motivation for a believer, is the eternal reward promised by Allah in the hereafter. Specifically, everlasting happiness in paradise. Jannah.
Jannah.
The Quran is filled with these glad tidings. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 25, gives this good news. And give good tidings to those who believe and do righteous deeds, that for them are gardens beneath which rivers flow.
Sounds idyllic.
And other verses add more detail. Surah At-Tawbah mentions the gardens of Eden. Surah Muhammad describes rivers of pure water, milk, wine that doesn't intoxicate, and clarified honey. It paints a picture of unimaginable bliss and fulfillment.
An ultimate reward for a life of faith and good deeds.
Exactly. But there's a crucial theological point here, a nuance regarding the relationship between our deeds and actually entering Jannah. It can seem like a contradiction at first glance.
Okay. What's the nuance?
Well, on one hand, you have verses like Surah Az-Zukhruf, verse 72, which says, "That is Jannah, which you've been made to inherit for what you used to do." That sounds like our deeds earn us paradise, right?
Yeah, for what you used to do. Seems causal.
Right. But then you have a very clear, authentic hadith narrated by Imam Muslim, where the Prophet Muhammad said, "No one will enter Jannah by their deeds."
Wait, no one? Not by their deeds. That sounds like the opposite.
Exactly. And the companions asked, "Not even you are a messenger of Allah." And he replied, "Not even I, unless Allah covers me with his mercy and grace."
So, how do we square that? Deeds are the cause, but deeds don't get you in.
The resolution, according to mainstream scholars, lies in understanding the nature of the cause. Our righteous deeds are indeed the means or the cause, the sabab, that Allah himself has appointed for us to attain his mercy. We are commanded to do them for this reason.
Okay, they're the designated pathway.
Yes. However, it is Allah's boundless mercy and grace, Brahma and Fadl itself, that is the actual means of entry. The price, if you could even use that word, isn't our deeds. Because think about it. Human deeds, no matter how great we think they are finite. They're flawed, imperfect. We do them with his help anyway.
True.
How could our finite, flawed actions ever be an equivalent price or exchange, Iwad, for something as infinite, perfect, and valuable as Jannah? The scales just don't match.
Ah, I see. So deeds are the way to qualify for mercy, but it's the mercy that actually grants entry.
Precisely. Our deeds demonstrate our faith, our sincerity, our effort, our obedience, which makes us eligible for Allah's grace. But the grace itself is the ultimate determining factor.
This raises an important question then. It's a beautiful theological balance, isn't it?
It really is.
Because this understanding, it encourages believers to strive diligently in good deeds. You don't just sit back. It's an act of obedience, hope, seeking that mercy.
Absolutely. Effort is required.
But at the same time, it instills this deep sense of humility. It reminds us that, no matter how much good we think we do, our ultimate salvation, our entry into paradise, depends solely, utterly on Allah's immense grace and favor.
Exactly. It prevents both arrogance, I earned this, and despair. My deeds are too small. Yeah. It keeps you striving, but always reliant on him.
Okay, so after exploring all these foundational arguments, let's try to pull it together. We've seen that worshiping Allah, according to these sources, stands on incredibly robust foundations. It's presented as, 1, a theological imperative stemming directly from his absolute oneness, Tawhid.
The logical consequence.
2, it's a profound fulfillment of our very human nature, our Fitra, our innate design.
The return to factory settings.
Right. And 3, it's a powerful catalyst for tangible, personal, and societal betterment right here, right now, in this world.
Peace, character, compassion, yes. And if we connect all that back to the bigger picture, the conclusion from the source material is pretty clear. It underscores that this command to worship, it's far from being a burden or just some empty formality. Rather, it's presented as an honor, the very essence of human existence that distinguishes us. It's the source of all goodness in this life, and ultimately the culmination of a journey rooted in that love, hope, and profound submission towards the divine.
So, as you, our listener, go about your day after hearing this, perhaps consider this question. If worship in this view is truly a return to our factory settings, to our innate design, what aspects of your own life, your own inner world, might benefit from maybe recalibrating towards that profound inherent purpose? Something to think about.